All right, buckle up everyone, because today's deep dive, well, it's taken us on a trip.
A trip, you say? I'm intrigued. Where are we headed?
We're going across India, unpacking a science textbook. But get this, it reads like a travelogue.
A science textbook that's also a travelogue. That's a unique combination. I'm all ears.
I know, right? It's all about uncovering those everyday science lessons that, honestly, we often overlook.
The hidden science in plain sight, huh? I love it. So tell me, where does the scientific journey begin?
Our guides on this adventure are two siblings, Molly and Volley.
Molly and Billy. All right, I'm already liking these characters.
They're on summer break, exploring different parts of India, and their first stop is their Nani's house.
Narni's house. Sounds cozy already. Where is it exactly?
It's in Haryana, right in the middle of harvest season.
Harvest season. That brings back memories, the sights, the sounds, the smells.
Right, and the book captures all of it. Imagine bustling courtyards, the aroma of freshly cut grain, and the rhythmic sounds of, well, separation in action.
Separation, you say. Ah, so we're diving into the science of it all.
Exactly. First up, handpicking. Monelli notices people separating stones and husk from grains by hand, and it gets him thinking.
Makes you realize that even something as simple as handpicking is a fundamental separation method.
It really is. It
Yeah.
makes you appreciate the ingenuity behind it.
Absolutely. Handpicking is all about observation, using your senses to make those distinctions.
Right. Size, color, shape. Those are the key factors.
Exactly. Think about it. You're doing a mini version of handpicking every time you pick out, say, a ripe tomato from a basket.
That's such a good point. We're all expert handpickers in our own way. But of course, when you're dealing with, like, mountains of grain,
You need a bit more firepower, right? That's where threshing and winnowing come into play.
and the book really paints a vivid picture of this. Manelli and Valley witness wheat threshing bundles of wheat stalks being rhythmically beaten.
Oh, I can almost hear it now. The rhythmic beating, the wind swirling around.
It's almost poetic, isn't it? And amidst all that, you've got winnowing happening, separating the grain from the husk.
Remember that image of farmers tossing threshed grain from a bamboo tray? That's winnowing in action.
Harnessing the power of the wind to make that separation. So simple, yet so effective.
It really speaks to the ingenuity of those who came before us, understanding nature's forces and using them to their advantage.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for a change of scenery.
Oh, I'm always up for a change of scenery. What do we have next?
Let's leave the fields behind and head into the heart of the kitchen. After all, what's an exploration of India without a little culinary adventure?
I wholeheartedly agree. Let's see what Mavelli and Valley are cooking up. I'm ready for a feast for the senses.
So imagine this. Vali's in the kitchen with her mommy, and the aroma of spices is filling the air.
Ah, the heart of the home. I'm already feeling hungry.
They're making meaty puri, that sweet, crispy flatbread.
Now that's a treat I haven't had in a while.
And right there, in the midst of all that flour and dough, is our next separation technique. Sieving.
Sieving, of course. It's all about size, isn't it? Separating those finer particles from the coarser ones.
Exactly. And it reminds me of how we use different sieves for different purposes.
You're right. A coarser sieve for rinsing berries, a finer one for dusting powdered sugar. Same principle, different scales.
And don't forget about sedimentation, where gravity does a lot of this work for us.
Precisely. It all comes down to understanding the properties of what we're working with and finding the most effective ways to separate and sort.
Speaking of effective separation,
Yeah.
our next stop takes us to Ahmedabad. And this is where things get really interesting.
Ahmedabad. Oh, I've heard tales of this place. Do tell, what adventures await in Ahmedabad? Ahmedabad, you say. Now, what could be so interesting about Ahmedabad?
Well, you know those vast salt flats?
Salt flats. Oh, right. The ones that shimmer under the sun. I've seen pictures. Absolutely stunning.
They're incredible, right? And the book talks about how salt is actually extracted from seawater using evaporation.
Evaporation, of course. Such a fundamental process.
Melanie learns about those shallow pits they use, just baking under the sun. The image is so vivid in the book, the sun beating down and those sparkling salt crystals left behind.
Nature's own distillation process. It's remarkable how effective something so simple can be.
It really is. And speaking of simple, the book even mentions this activity. Mally tries spreading salt water on black paper and letting it dry.
Ah, a classic. You can actually see the salt crystals emerge as the water evaporates.
It's like magic, but it's science, right?
It's the magic of science.
Right.
Okay, so we've gone from handpicking to threshing and winnowing to sieving, now evaporation. What's next on our separation adventure?
Well, from those expansive salt flats, how about we shift gears to something A little closer to home.
Closer to home, you say. Intriguing. Lead the way.
Let's talk about tea.
Tea. Universal beverage. I'm always up for a good cuppa.
The book talks about Mali and Valley enjoying a cup of chai with their Dada. And of course, Dada being the wise figure he is, he uses it as a teachable moment.
I love those everyday lessons. What does Dada teach them about?
Sedimentation and decantation.
Two processes we often take for granted. How does he explain them?
So he starts by pointing out how those tea leaves, after steeping, they naturally settle at the bottom of the cup. That's sedimentation, right?
Exactly. Gravity pulling those denser particles down. It's all about density differences.
And then Dada carefully pours out the tea, leaving those settled leaves behind. That's decantation in action.
A delicate dance between separation and enjoyment, wouldn't you?
It's like he's separating the science right before their eyes.
Precisely. Although, as we know, decantation isn't always foolproof. A few rogue tea leaves might escape, right?
Right. I can just imagine those little tea leaves trying to make a break for it.
That's where a good strainer comes in handy.
Exactly. And that's our cue for filtration.
Filtration, the unsung hero of a clear cup of tea.
The book talks about Mali handing his Dada a strainer, and it gets me thinking about all the different ways we use filters in everyday life.
It's remarkable, isn't it? From brewing coffee to purifying water, filtration plays a crucial role. Think about the different types of filters we have.
Right, like a coffee filter versus a water filter, both using the same principle, but designed for different purposes.
And the humble strainer? Filtering out those tea leaves so we can enjoy a smooth, debris-free sip. It really makes you appreciate the simple yet effective tools we have at our disposal.
Speaking of tools and filtration, the book takes a bit of an unexpected turn here.
Oh, an unexpected turn, you say? I do love a good plot twist. What's in store for Malin and Valali now?
Well, imagine this. Malali, Vali, and their Dada are out on a fishing boat.
A fishing boat. Okay, now that's a change of pace. I'm hooked. What happens next?
They're hauling in the net, but it's not just fish they're catching.
Oh, no, that doesn't sound good. What else is in the net?
Plastic bags, debris, a stark reminder of pollution. It's actually a powerful moment in the book.
A sobering reminder of the impact we have on the environment?
Exactly. And the book uses this opportunity to highlight filtration, but in an unexpected way.
The fishing net acting as an unintended filter, trapping not just marine life, but also pollution.
It's a clever way to bring a real-world issue into the science lesson.
It goes to show that science isn't confined to textbooks. It's all around us.
It really is. Okay, ready for something a little lighter? Our next stop takes us to Madhya Pradesh, and this time we're exploring the science of churning.
Churning. Now, that's a word I haven't heard in a while. This should be interesting.
Madhya Pradesh. Churning. You left me hanging. What's happening in this part of our journey?
Well, hold on to your hats, because we're about to witness art and science collide.
Art and science. Now, that's an interesting combination. Tell me more.
Okay, so picture this. Molly and Valley are at this roadside eatery.
Roadside eatery sounds authentic.
Right, and they're sipping on refreshing buttermilk, and Molly notices this big, vibrant painting.
A painting in a roadside eatery. What's so special about it?
It's not just any painting. It's depicting the process of churning buttermilk.
Ah, I see where you're going with this. Turning another separation method.
Exactly. And the book uses this painting as a springboard to explain how churning works.
That's so clever. So for those of us who haven't had the pleasure of churning buttermilk, how does it actually work?
Well, you basically agitate the buttermilk, and this churning action...
Agitate, so like shake it up.
Yeah, exactly. And as you churn it, it separates the lighter butterfat from the buttermilk.
And that's how you get those creamy golden globs of butter we all know and love.
It's a beautiful example of how a simple mechanical process can lead to such a delicious transformation. And it all comes down to density, of course.
Right. The butterfat being less dense, it separates and floats to the top. So cool.
It is, isn't it? All right, ready for our final stop.
Always. Take us home.
From the bustling streets and artistic discoveries to the tranquil hills of Shillong.
Shillong, where Mali and Valley's Bua lives. This should be good. What does Shillong have in store for us?
Well, their Bua has a surprise in store, a practical science lesson, courtesy of a carpenter.
A carpenter. Okay, now I'm really curious. What does a carpenter have to do with separation science?
So imagine this. The carpenter is working away, surrounded by sawdust, when suddenly he drops a handful of iron nails right into the pile.
Oof. That's a tough one. How do you get those nails back?
My Mali and Valley, ever the observant duo, have a suggestion. A magnet.
Of course. Magnetic separation to the rescue. It's like a classic science fair demonstration.
Exactly. And the book explains how it works. Iron being a magnetic material.
It's attracted to the magnet, leaving the non-magnetic sawdust behind. Simple, yet so effective.
It is, and it makes you realize that this principle, it's not just for lost nails and sawdust. It has real-world applications on a much larger scale.
You're right, like those giant magnets they use in recycling plants to separate metals.
Exactly. It's fascinating how these basic principles, what we see playing out in a carpenter's workshop, they're scaled up to industrial processes.
It really makes you appreciate the power of these fundamental scientific concepts.
It does. And it's a great reminder that science is everywhere, whether we're churning buttermilk, brewing a cup of tea, or simply watching a carpenter work.
It's all connected. This deep dive has been incredible. We've traveled across India, explored different separation methods.
From those ancient techniques like hand-picking and winnowing to more modern applications like filtration and magnetic separation.
And we've seen how these methods, whether they're being used in a village in Haryana or a recycling plant in a big city,
They all rely on a fundamental understanding of the properties of matter.
it's been an eye-opening journey, that's for sure. And I have a feeling I'll never look at a cup of tea or a pat of butter the same way again.
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? Discovering the science that surrounds us in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you. Until next time, keep those curious minds churning.